Welcome back to Boring Build Friday. We got some parts for our 2019 Yukon Denali, so it's time to get them put on. I found a whole front end assembly, so it's time to get it on the truck. But we need to take it apart so the painting gnomes can do their job. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, links up there, it'll get you caught up. Let's get this thing apart.
So here's a better look at our front end. It's got almost everything we need. They just unbolted it from the cowl and lifted it off. There are a few little things I'm missing. I'm going to have to go dig through the pile to find them. That's why we never get rid of the pile till we're totally done with the job. We got our air box, bumper reinforcement, all of our supports, our battery tray, radiator hoses, just about everything. We're going to have some leftover parts. We have our really expensive headlights, our shutters, headlight mounting panel, and here's our bumper. It's got the grille, the fog lights, everything we need.
One of those new ones with a remote hood cable.
Good thing I didn't need the hood cable, so this one's no good. Remove our closeout panel. I'll cover up the hood latch, set the hood down, that way it won't latch. Now we can unbolt it. And now we can lift it off. The hood hinges decided to extend themselves on the springs. Kind of wasn't expecting that. So now we'll strip down our hood. Pull off the rubber baby buggy bumpers. I'll pop off all the clips for the hood insulation and slide that out. That's it. Not much to this hood. So now we can pull our headlights out. Pull all the bolts out. Slide them out of there. Release the safeties and unplug the lights. Same thing on the passenger side. Unplug the light. Go put those somewhere safe. They're expensive. I don't need them broken. Now we can start unbolting our fenders. Pull off our supports, then unbolt the fender from the radiator support. Disconnect the spring. Pull it out of there. Slide fender off. Some washer lines that were still attached. Our fender's free. We'll strip our fender down. Pull our carpeted wheel liner off. I think I'm going to go with hardwood this time since it's easier to clean. I don't want to use ceramic. It's a little heavy. Truck's only 1500. Maybe I'll use it on the next 2500. Now we can unbolt that bracket in the back. They just unbolted that bracket from the body. I left mine on, but at least they gave them to me in case I needed them. So we'll pull the lower bracket off. I'll take the J-nuts off. Pull the rest of the J-nuts off. And all of our clips for our washer lines. All the clips for our wheel liners that are easy to get to. Pull the bumper support bracket off. And now we can pull the passenger fender off. Got a little bit of wiring harness, pull that off. Unbolt the fender from the radiator support. And pull the fender off. Try not to let the radiator support roll off the tire they put it on. Now I'll try to find a more stable spot for this radiator support. It's kind of fragile. We don't want to break the cooling fans. We also don't want it rolling onto the floor.
There.
So now we can strip our passenger fender down. Pull our favorite carpeted wheel liner off. I can unbolt the brackets in the back. Pull the J-nuts off. Pull the clips off of the headlight. The rest of the J-nut and wire clips. Bumper support bracket.
So we have all of our parts all stripped down, ready for the painting gnomes. So they'll come in here, edge it all up, and we can throw them back on the vehicle. So let's get out of here, because they don't like to be on camera.
So while we're waiting for the painting gnomes to show up and do their thing, we'll find something to do. Put our radar unit back on for our cruise control, snap it into place. Now we can put our bumper reinforcement on. Put a couple tabs in the back. You just slide it down onto there and it'll hold itself in place. We're going to start a few of the bolts. When they're all started, we'll run them in there. I'll put the radiator support up there. We left it complete. We didn't pull anything out of it. That saved me quite a bit of time, not having to assemble this mess. There's a lot of little parts in there. Our wiring harness was damaged, and this one was fine. It's slightly different, but the one part that's different won't make any difference to us. So we'll just set the radiator support up there, and then move on. Got this lower bracket for the fuse box. So we'll pull all of our plugs out. There's just 2 tabs on each plug, and they slide out of there. Toss that in the pile. Now we have our new used one. Just push the plugs in and slide them in. They lock in. I'll take a bungee cord, hold it up out of our way so we can get our fender in there when the painting gnome is done. We'll put our clips back on our trans cooler and oil cooler lines. Plug in our trans cooler line. Put the little plastic safety on there. Put our radiator hose on. Put the other clip in for the oil cooler line. So they must have let the new guy design the radiator on this thing and forgot to tell him that the oil cooler outlets on the engine are on the driver's side, because he put the oil cooler on the passenger side of the radiator. So we end up with lines that run across the front of the engine, instead of having lines that just go from the left side of the engine to the left side of the radiator. Way to go, new guy. So they're a little bent, but I do want to plug them in just in case somebody wants to start it or we need to move it. Put our safeties on. Now we're going to change our sealing washers for our AC lines. They just slide off. We'll slide our new ones on there. We don't want to lose any of this liquid gold in here. Slide the AC lines on and bolt them on. Bolt our bracket on. And our painting gnome is done. So now we can start assembling our fenders. Put all of our clips on for our wires. Our J-nuts. And put our hood hinge back on. Bolt it in. And now you put the fender on the truck. Slide it in there. Line it up with the radiator support. That's pretty much self-aligning. Put a couple bolts in it. Bolt in the back of the fender. Bolt in the bottom of the fender. Bolt in the top of the fender. And now we'll put our passenger fender together. We'll bolt the hood hinge in. Put all our J-nuts and clips on. A couple little plugs. A clip for the headlight. And now we put the fender on the truck. Bolt the top in. Got a little assistance to bolt the back in. Get it in the right spot. Bolt the bottom in. And now we can bolt the front in. Now we're ready to put the hood on. Bolt it down, close it, and see how bad it looks. Not too good. We're going to have to move it around a little bit. So we need to move the front end towards the passenger side a little bit. So a ratchet strap will do it for us. Just put it on there. Pull it over a little bit. We haven't tightened up the radiator support yet, so it slides real easy. There is a small amount of adjustment on there. So we'll get it centered. And we need to move our hood over a little bit more to close up that gap. So we'll loosen up the hood bolts just the slightest bit, so it's got a little tension on it. It'll hold itself in place and allow us to move it pretty easily. So we'll give the hood just a little nudge, which I can guarantee will either be too far or not enough. And we'll tug it back a little bit because we went too far, and tighten it down. And repeat this process 600 more times until we finally get it right. We'll bolt our radiator support down. That'll keep it from moving. Release our ratchet strap. And close our hood. See how close we are. Our gaps look much better. Hood latch lines up. Think we might have got it in the right spot. Got a bodywork gnome over there inspecting my work. So since it looks good, we can move on with the rest of it together. Put our wiring harness on our passenger side. Slide our battery tray in there. Drop it down into place. Try out our new battery tray installation tool. And now we'll set the overflow in place. Bolt in the battery tray and the overflow bottle. Now we're going to try those new spring clamp pliers everyone's telling me about. Yay, spring clamps. These have the locks. They're extra fun. You just squeeze them. They'll hold themselves open. Slide them on. In the pile. Slide them off their locks as they violently snap closed. And we'll put the battery in. However, we're about to find out the engineers thought that the overflow bottle would be changed more than the battery, so that should go in afterwards. And you have to remove it to get the battery in. I already figured it out, but I'm still in denial. Now I've accepted it. Time to take that overflow bottle back out. Slide the battery in. Bolt the battery down. Put a little fuse box on top and a positive cable. Overflow back in for the second time. Put our rear support bracket on. Start the bolts. Now you can bolt it in. So after a brief archaeological dig, we found our old tray out of the pile. So we'll put our airbox tray in there, since our new front end didn't come with one. Bolt our tray in. Bolt our overflow in. Tighten up our positive cable. And now onto the driver's side. Drop our auxiliary battery tray in there. Fold it down. Bolt in the plastic retainer for our fuse box. Plug in a few clips and that last harness that came from the radiator support. And now we're ready to put the fuse box in. Slide it into place. Lock down the little arms. And it's clipped in. One more wiring harness in the back. Needed to find a home. Bolt in our rear support. Bolt in our front support. So now we're going to make a template so we can put our nameplate back in the proper spot when we're done. So we'll mark it from the front edge of the door and the body line. Then we'll mark the edges of the letters on the tape so we know where they go, get the spacing correct. Then we'll write where the letters go. And we'll pop our letters off. When you buy new letters from the dealer, they come with a little template. They keep them all spaced out properly. But that's also like 70 bucks. Retaping these cost me about $5. So we're going to retape them. Now we'll add to our template for the body side molding. So we get that where it belongs. Slide our putty knife along the bottom of the body side molding. And we'll slide it across the top. Pull the molding off. We'll hit it all with the magic eraser later, get rid of the residue that was left over. We'll take our template, stick it to one of the windows inside the truck. Then when it's all painted, we'll be able to stick our template on the door and get our nameplate and body side molding right back where they were. Now the passenger side, we'll just pull everything off. We'll use our template on our driver's side, then transfer it over to the passenger side when we're done. So we only have to do it once. Now you can put the hood insulation in. Got some tabs in the back, just slide them in. Then put the little insulation clips on there, just pop them in. And the two rubber baby buggy bumpers for the front. Then we can fill up our antifreeze. Thirsty little guy. So a trick when you're using the vacuum fill system, at the very end, let it draw a little air in there. That way the overflow bottle will have the air required because it's not supposed to be filled to the top. And that'll keep the level pretty close. If you need to add a pint or two, no problem. If it's a little bit overfull, won't hurt anything. But it's better than being filled to the top, because then when it heats up, it's just going to puke it all out. We'll pull the hose off of there, put our cap back on, and now we're ready to tear down our bumper. Pull our wiring harness off of here, unplug the fog lights and parking sensors. Unplug the bottom of the harness, a couple more parking sensors. And our harness is out. We're going to bolt our fog lights. We're going to bolt the bottom bumper support. Fog light on the other side. Fog light can actually come off first, so we can get to all the bolts for the bumper support. Then we'll unbolt the lower valance. But first we have to pull out the fog light trim to get to the last bolt on the lower valance. Now we can pop off all the clips for the lower valance. A couple more bolts and keep popping them off all the way along. Pull off our fog light bezel on this side. Get to the rest of our bolts. And pull the rest of the valance off. Now you can pull the grill out.
Rivets. We're working on a Ford.
Not a fan of rivets. So once the rivets are out, you can start popping the grill out of its tabs. At least there's only 2 rivets on this one. Unclip all the grill. And move all of our stuff because the bumper wants to fall on the floor. Oh! Gotta be quicker than that. We'll set the bumper down. The grill out of our way. And we'll pull out the middle bezel. It's got a couple little plastic clips in the ends. It's got the plastic tabs that slide through the bumper, so we'll just disengage those. Pop that piece out of there.
So we got some new parts to throw on our Yukon, straight from GM. Even a belt and an air filter. It's weird when they happen to be the cheapest. But the most amazing part of all is I got oil cooler lines that I have to replace from an accident before they could start leaking.
So first we'll pull our plastic skid plate off of there. I don't know who you think are fooling GM, but nothing's skidding over that plastic plate. It's just gonna break. Although there is a metal one behind it. And we have to unbolt that too. We'll pull that whole mess out of there. The 2 pieces do come apart. I just didn't feel like taking out the extra 2 bolts. So there's not a whole lot to see here because I chose to do this on the ground instead of on the lift. Now the reason I did that is I didn't want to fill up the oil cooler and the lines that were already drained from when we changed the radiator, because then we just have a bigger mess. In hindsight, I should have made the mess. So you have to drop down the front differential, which is just 2 bolts, and then it sits down on the frame. That gives you a little room to get these oil cooler lines out. There's 2 bolts on the block, and then you got to do the hokey pokey. You got to turn it around one way, slide it out a little bit, twist it back another, slide it a little further, throw things, swear a lot, curse the engineers, repeat, until lines are removed. Then you just reverse the process to get them back in. I believe that's exactly how the instructions said to put them in. Oh yeah, and of course you have to torque them down. So now that our oil cooler line struggle is over, we can do something easy, like put the belt on. Pull the tensioner back, slide our old belt off. It had a tear in it, probably from when the cooling fan went back into it. So we got our new GM belt. We routed around all of our pulleys. Release our tensioner. And our belt's on. Pretty simple. There's lots of room in here. We do have an auxiliary battery tray. GM, why aren't you putting an L5P in these? So now we can put our air filter in. Put the cover back on. Apparently that's easier said than done. Now we'll put our intake tube on. It's got a little bracket on the side it slides into. And it goes over the throttle body. Tighten up all of our clamps. Plug in our mass airflow sensor. And then tighten up our air box. Clean freak trigger warning. I'm about to install dirty parts. Look away, guys. Now it's time to put our skid plates back on. So we'll bolt those back in.
So this is why I was changing the cooler lines. You hit the crank, put a little slice in there. It's not leaking, but I don't like to take chances with oil cooler lines because when it does give, Catastrophic failure is next.
So now we have to pull our doors apart so the painting gnome can blend into our doors. And he has to paint the edges because there's a little body work from where they bent the doors up trying to open them. So we'll pop all the covers off, get to our screws behind the handle and the grab handle, a couple in the bottom, and we'll just pull the door panel off. Unplug all the wires and the door handle. And then pull the top trim piece off. Unscrew the belt molding. Unclip the mirror wires and unbolt the mirror. Pop the mirror off. And pull the wires out. Now we can disconnect the outside handle. Release that little cap. Slide the handle back and pull it out. And we're going to let it dangle there. We got to go on the inside because there's a wire that goes into it. Now we got to get the window trim off. So we'll drill out the rivets that are in there. Pull the belt molding off. Slide it out of the trim. Pop the clips off. Pull the window channel out. And we have to pull the trim out the back of the door. There's a couple clips in there. They're not very friendly. I broke them both. I have to take that off because there's a rivet underneath them. So we'll drill that out. It started to spin, so we'll just knock the head of it off. Get our trim out of there. And now we're on to the driver's side. Pretty much the same thing. Pop our covers off, pull our bolts out from under the handles, pop the trim panel off, disconnect it, pull the upper trim off, disconnect our mirror, and a little plastic cap wasn't good enough for this door trim, so there's a screw in there. I assume it's for anti-theft purposes, so once you unscrew it, there's a little plastic tab in there. Move it out of the way, and you can get to the screw that holds the cap on. Unscrew it like you normally do, and then pop the cap off. Slide the handle back. I already disconnected the wires in this one, so we can actually take this one all the way out. Pull a little bit of gasket off, and unbolt our mirror. Unscrew the belt molding and pull it off.
So that's it for our Yukon today. We'll turn it over to the painting gnomes and let them work their magic. Then when they're all done, we'll throw it all back together and get this Yukon back on the road. So like this video if you found it interesting, share it if you think somebody else might. Subscribe to see the rest of this or whatever else I'm working on. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.